Hey everybody, it's Lawrence from financialthing.com coming to you today from the beautiful state of Montana here in the US of A at Yellowstone National Park. And I've been getting a lot of questions recently from readers asking me, do I still think that peer-to-peer lending is a viable place for you to invest your money? 2019 and 2020 has been a difficult year for the economy in general, and no less for peer-to-peer lending, as we've seen this contraction of some of the peer-to-peer companies that you may have invested through. They've disappeared, closed their doors involuntarily or voluntarily. So obviously investors are a little bit skittish and a little bit afraid of whether they can invest their money safely or not. Of course, there's always risk in any type of investing that you are going to do, and that's no different in peer-to-peer lending. So please remember to diversify and don't put all your eggs into one basket. But to answer the question, yes, I still believe that peer-to-peer lending is a viable place where you can invest money. You're obviously not going to get the bumper returns that you may have experienced in the past, but there are still some solid companies that are paying some relatively decent returns, especially if you compare them to rates that you're going to get in a bank or even through national savings and S&I products now. So what's important is you got to do your research. You've got to do your due diligence. Make sure that you look at the types of loans that are being offered and ask yourself, are the loans sensible? Are they paying silly high interest rates? What are the spreads? What are the interest rates that the borrowers are paying versus what the investors are being paid? Do they make sense? Are you getting loans that are out in the middle of nowhere on property that would be very difficult to sell if the property goes into default? Do the numbers make sense? Also, take a look at the people running the company, the owners and the directors. Do they have experience in the sector that they're lending through? For example, if they're doing property loans, do the directors have any experience in property lending, or are they more people that are experienced in the tech business? So I tend to look at those things now a lot more than I used to when I first started peer-to-peer lending. So there's a few simple things you can do to start out by looking at the companies, looking at the directors. Do the directors have experience in the sectors that they're lending against? For example, if they're doing property lending, do the directors have any experience in property development or bridging and lending themselves? A lot of the companies I invest through, the directors do have a lot of experience in that, and I look at that very, very closely nowadays. Also, look at the types of loans that the peer-to-peer lending companies are offering. Do they make sense? For example, if you're going to lend money on a farmhouse out in rural Scotland, chances are if that loan goes into default, that farmhouse is going to be very, very difficult to sell. So pick out loans that make sense on paper, that look like the valuations make sense. I also stick to loans that are not too high in value. I'm not trying to do anything that's multi-million pounds. I'm going to try to do smaller loans that are easier to recover and sell if the property needs to be sold. And then also look at the spreads between what the borrowers are paying and what the investors are being paid in return wise. If, for instance, a borrower is paying 20%, you could pretty much consider that borrower is classified as higher risk. And if the investors are only being paid 6%, that's a huge spread. Thankfully, you can see these numbers now in most cases on most peer-to-peer lending platforms. Also, you can look at my top 5 list. Just click on the link down below to receive that if you haven't received that already. And there's great resources on the web that do analysis of these peer-to-peer lending companies nowadays. And while you are going to see a contraction in the industry on a whole, as I think coming into 2021, there are still some really solid peer-to-peer companies that I like right now and I write about on my website. So yes, the answer to the question is I definitely think there are some really, really solid peer-to-peer lending companies out there, and not as many choices as we had 5 years ago. But some of those choices now have gone out of business involuntarily or voluntarily, making the choices less. But I think there's more solid companies out there to choose from now. Anyway, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you can, subscribe to the channel if you like the video. Hit the bell because you'll be notified when new videos are released. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment down below and tell your friends and family about the video. Until next time, bye from Montana.